Good evening. I am Dr. Michael Martirano, the Interim Superintendent for the Howard County Public School System. And to members of our community who are tuned in watching via streaming, to members in the audience, and to our board members, this is a very detailed presentation and a rather long presentation, so get comfortable in terms of the evening, because this has been an extremely important discussion and topic for our entire school community. So it's not something that I can pull together in a matter of a minute or a 5-minute presentation. I want to start off at the beginning with setting the parameters and defining the road forward. Keep in mind that tonight I am making a recommendation to the Board of Education of Howard County. The operative word in that statement is recommendation. And at the end of my presentation, I will outline a series of next steps that go. If those who have been following this process extremely close from the beginning of when we started this, I have consistently addressed community groups. I've done several interviews, both in the print media, television, etc., and I've defined consistently that it is a process, and the process continues at a very clear and defined level to include input along the way, to include engagement along the way, and once I make my recommendation this evening to the board, the process continues with the ultimate governing body of the Howard County Public School System, the Board of Education, making their final decision in November, and I'll define that very clearly as well. So without further ado, board members, I'm going to begin the presentation. And as I stated, you have your PowerPoint in front of you, you have the board report, and you also have a one-pager. Any document that I refer to for the audience members as well as individuals who are tuned in online, all of those documents will be posted on our website for the ability to download those as PDFs. And then we also will be sharing those with community in various meetings and any other questions that we may have. But I'm going to present this in a very clearly defined way. So Board of Education, I am pleased to present to you this evening my proposed recommendation for addressing our school capacity issues. The recommendation is grounded in fiscal reality and is aligned with our mission to ensure academic success and create an inclusive and nurturing environment that provides equitable learning opportunities for all students. But before I continue, I do want to recognize the people who have worked very hard on this process. Board members, I want to first acknowledge your support and leadership throughout this entire process. It's been extremely difficult and stressful for you to remain in your position and not comment and maintaining a level of objectivity. And I want to emphasize that with the community, that your elected officials have a process of which they have to follow, and they intentionally cannot respond. So the many times that Ms. Valancourt has had to say to individuals, you cannot speak tonight at public comment based upon this, it was defined for a particular reason, and I see head nods in the audience, and I appreciate your respect of that. Two, I want to acknowledge the attendance area committee members who have volunteered a great deal of time and made personal sacrifices because of their dedication to all of our students. I appreciate that, and several of those members are here this evening. If not, they told me they would be here after they went out to dinner. Staff in our school planning and capital planning office who are here this evening as well, who continue to field a myriad of questions. We had over 7,000 survey responses, emails, 300 different options, and I'm going to get into that in a little bit detail, but want to acknowledge our entire staff, and the names are plentiful for us to acknowledge there. And I'm thankful that every day they chose to show up for work on time. To our county executive and county council members for their commitment to working with us to find solutions throughout the process. It was a fluid and dynamic process over the last several months, and the engagement in Howard County, the wonderful Howard County, is alive and well through our social networks, through our involvement with our elected officials, and people have responded throughout the process, and we've maintained a level of fidelity to the process. And to the many residents who have participated in this process, providing feedback attending meetings, and bringing together their neighborhoods to advance their priorities. And once again, this new statement that I know all of you have heard, I have seen you, I have heard you, and I see you tonight. Because the fact of the engagement is alive and well, and I greatly value the feedback and the conversations that I've had over these last several months during this process. So shortly after I was appointed as the acting superintendent on May 2nd, I was informed that 35 of our schools, and if we think about it in terms of our schools, 73 schools with the exclusion of ARL, Cedar Lane, and the Homewood Center, 35 of those schools, 47%, were outside of the target utilization defined by Policy 6010. And let me remind everybody, the method to all of this is defined by Policy 6010 that many of you have, like myself, memorized and committed to memory. It defines the whole aspect of school attendance areas. This means that the enrollment of these schools were either below 90% or over 110% of their capacity. Now, this also reflects the good news and the bad news, that because of that fact, the good news and bad news is that we are growing. The good news is we are growing. The bad news is that we are growing because it creates concern regarding having adequate public facilities to ensure that that growth is accommodated. And so as a result, I've recognized that we have 35 schools outside of that, and we are one of the fastest, if not the fastest growing county in Maryland, if not one of the fastest growing counties in the United States. Our system has added approximately 35 new schools. Think about this, 35 new schools over the last 29 years. That's an incredible, palpable amount of growth. As a result, our redistricting has been focused on opening these new schools, and decisions were made to put off a more comprehensive redistricting, a broad-scale attendance adjustment over the past several years. The impact of that decision to previously put it on at the large level has had cumulative effects. Comprehensive redistricting has had this cumulative negative effect because we have a number of our schools outside of that targeted area. The situation is absolutely unacceptable today and will only grow more critical unless we take decisive action. According to the 2017 feasibility study, which many of you have seen, by 2026, elementary enrollment is projected to increase by 4,000 elementary students. Middle school enrollment is projected to increase by 2,200 students, and high school enrollment is projected to increase by 2,800. Think about those numbers and keeping up with a high educational program at the same time. Currently, 17 of our schools are projected to exceed 110% of their capacity well outside the targeted area, bringing them, again, what we've established outside of that target utilization area and within our policy. If we continue to delay and address this issue, we will continue to allow a large and growing proportion of our children to suffer. This problem, as I stated, did not occur overnight. For example, overcrowding at Howard High School has been identified since 2009. And it's now 2017. And while we could redistrict today, the solution will not necessarily be sustainable. We need a thoughtful, deliberate approach that will support our long-term projected growth and reduce overcrowding. Up until now, our system has relied on what I'm defining as the one-trick pony of redistricting and building new schools in addition to address school overcrowding. Tonight, I'm proposing a more gradual, methodical approach that includes a more measured redistricting that minimizes community disruption as much as possible. It provides a long-range roadmap for addressing capacity issues as they develop and in ways that advance our commitment to learning and leading with equity and ensure success for every child. The recommendations that I'm presenting represent careful analysis of data, as well as verification of all of our data by an independent consulting firm to ensure data integrity. So throughout the process, a number of bumps were hit along the way in terms of that turbulence. And one of the issues that was raised was the data integrity. I acknowledge that there were times during this process that data validity was rightfully questioned. That is why we moved quickly to put in place procedures to ensure that all data used is accurate and current. I would not be presenting a recommendation today to this board based upon data that was inaccurate or could not be called into question, or could be called into question, I should say. Therefore, I utilized the services of an outside consulting group to verify our data. The consultant, Cooperative Strategies, and we will present that total report online as well, verified the data used in the feasibility study, the AAC plans, and my final proposal. Their analysis included that the farms data, projected housing units, and projected student enrollment. The analysis did not include student racial or ethnic demographics because that data is self-reported by parents and thus cannot be independently verified. Specifically, the consultant analyzed data from the input files associated with scenario testing and the output files and reports that were generated from the software, then constructed a relational database to analyze recommendations parallel to the Howard County Public School System redistricting tool. Their findings included, and this is critical, although technical, it's critical because I have to give confidence and provide confidence that our data is accurate and reliable. A data conversion error was observed with the distribution of future apartment student yields. The redistricting tool was updated to address this error. Input tables were compared for consistency and projected housing and projected student yield by housing type matched. The outputs were reevaluated by the consultant and found to be consistent. Aggregate polygon farm data, free and reduced meals percentages, matched the school level free and reduced meals reports. No reporting errors were found on projected high school and middle school level enrollments. At the elementary level, minor issues were associated with the propagation of non-integer-based school-level projection data being propagated out into the integer-based planning polygon. That's very technical. This is a known issue and is accounted for with an adjustment factor. The issues discovered with this process will be mitigated with the updated redistricting tool that will eliminate future errors due to rounding and compatibility. The bottom line is that our data is accurate and validated as a result of going through this process, and I want to start up front that no recommendation I would make to this board would be advanced based upon data that I view to be inaccurate or not validated. So we did go through that process. We've heard from the community, we've heard the conversations about that, and we have responded. As I've said, this is a process. We follow with fidelity the process outlined in Board Policy 6010, which guides the Board of Education, Superintendent, and Office of School Planning in establishing school attendance areas. The process includes several components: the creation of the Area Attendance Committee, the AAC, comprising representative members of the community who generously donated their time to benefit all students. Additionally, we worked to achieve diversity, and that was an ongoing process. Understand that that was a concern early on, and we continued to work with that throughout the process, and we encourage more members in the future to get involved in the overall process so that we have representative samples from all facets of our community. Public information, public feedback was collected through community meetings and surveys. Open and transparent AAC meetings through the use of web streaming and other channels, the first time that that was instituted in the process. Another first was a new Spanish translation of the feasibility study and posting all committee proceedings and plan outlines for public access and public hearings. Regular communications to update the public on progress and invite to their participation. Review of annual projections of enrollment and other data, and the evaluation of the impact of redistricting factors such as farm data, projected utilization, and student performance and feed rates per Section 4B of Policy 6010, school attendance areas. Transparency and community engagement were a priority in the overall process. The committee held 8 public meetings, reviewed feedback collected via online surveys and emails. And let me state that over 8,200 survey responses and 3 alternative scenarios were reviewed by the AAC. That's commendable and impressive at the same time that we had that amount of feedback and that information had been reviewed. These meetings, as I've stated, were also live streamed online and aired on the Howard County Public School System television station. We ensured that the process has provided every community member an equitable opportunity to participate, whether it included providing feedback or interacting with us personally to discuss the impact of redistricting. There are certainly some lessons learned that perhaps could be incorporated into the policy in the future, and we are always open to feedback regarding the process. We recognize, and I recognize, because as a resident of Howard County for 19 years, I went through this process with my children. I recognize that it's an emotional and difficult process for families. I've taken special care to speak about the process with parents, students, and others at every opportunity, at board meetings, county council sessions, regional kickoff meetings, and with every team of individuals who were following me around at every meeting that I participated in throughout the last several months. I hope that continues. I will miss you if that doesn't continue. I knew I'd get some laughter on that. I also extended the time for community feedback to September 28th so that we gave the community as much time as possible to provide input directly. Again, I have heard you and I have seen you and we have listened. We have seen and heard from everyone, and their feedback was critical to the development of these recommendations. And again, I've talked to numerous people throughout the process. The community engagement has been palpable, and I truly appreciate it. That's what represents and makes Howard County the engaged county of which we are. In addition, we've worked very closely with our county government leaders, our elected officials, to understand their financial projections and collaborate on solutions that meet the community needs. And I can say that our elected officials and delegation members and county council have responded to your concerns and to me and to our board with great interest. We are very thankful to our county executive, Alan Kittleman, and the county council as we proposed to accelerate the opening of the new high school number 13 by 2 years to 2022 rather than 2024. That was a data point that was not available at the beginning of this process, and I need to emphasize that. As we engaged in the process, variables were present that were not present that emerged during the process. As a result of the confluence of the attendance area adjustment process with the start of the capital improvement program development, and if you remember that process, board members, clearly, I asked for your consideration to remove the CIP from a meeting that we had scheduled, and you arranged a special meeting for that presentation because during that period of time, there was the insertion of additional data point that our staff worked from Thursday to Monday to develop basically an entire new CIP around the clock over those 3 days that would include the advancement of a high school to 2022 as opposed to 2024. As a result of the confluence of the attendant area adjustment process with the start of the capital improvement development process presented a unique opportunity to alleviate overcrowding while moving forward with our mission to ensure equitable outcomes and support student success. We didn't yet have this important commitment from Mr. Kittleman on August 17, 2017, when we held our pre-development meetings for capital budget, nor at that time the original feasibility study was discussed. We also didn't have the data point for the AAC to consider during their initial deliberation. This data point, the adjustment and the advancement of the high school by 2 years in getting a commitment from our county executive, working with the county council, was a game changer. That created a whole different dialogue about how we would proceed with the redistricting. I requested that the AAC present alternative recommendations based upon the new information so that we could continue to follow Policy 6010 with fidelity. But I also want to mention some of the low points that we had during the process. Unfortunately, during this process, that last meeting didn't occur because there were some personal attacks against some of our AAC members that therefore I made the decision for them not to meet. We need to continue to do better as a community, and we've talked about this several times. But they did provide valuable feedback and have presented a modified recommendation that I have taken under advisement. So tonight, board members, I want you to understand that my recommended plan takes into account both the feasibility study of the initial presentation and the AAC plans into consideration, which will be defined as Plan 2A and 2B. So I'm going to continue at a level of detail. To summarize, the recommendation I'm presenting this evening incorporates all previous work and feedback from the community and the AAC. It is based on data that has been validated by the consultant cooperative strategies, and that includes the most available student assessment data from the 2016-2017 school year, which was not available when the process started. My recommendation also reflects our collaborative work with county government on the capital budget. In addition, instead of simply looking at adjusting attendance areas, we've looked at non-traditional innovative solutions to help alleviate our overcrowding problem, while at the same time offering new programs and opportunities for our students to succeed. This is different than what's occurred in previous redistricting in Howard County. And I made an intentional decision to increase the level of innovation and advance an agenda to impact the instruction at the same time as addressing redistricting. My recommendation is a long-term solution, not a short-term Band-Aid. It provides a realistic solution for leveling school capacity over a long run in an equitable manner that widens access to educational opportunities for all students while avoiding the disruption of a larger scale single-year redistricting. We can't simply rely, and I'm going to use the word again, the expression, we cannot simply rely on the one-trick pony of redistricting to solve the problem. We must be innovative, thoughtful, deliberate, and decisive as we move forward. So, board members, 3 proposals are before the board for consideration, and I'm going to outline these clearly. 1, the feasibility study, which would redistrict approximately 8,800 students. 8,800 students. The original AAC plan, which would impact approximately 6,500 students. And the AAC's alternate plan, which would impact approximately 5,600 students. And now I'm going to get into some specifics. The plan that I propose tonight redistricts approximately 2,200 students. Let me get into the first option in a summary. The feasibility study provides a scenario under which the Howard County Public School Systems would fall within targeted utilization in 2018-2019, with some ability to manage the projected enrollment growth over the next 5 to 7 years. It is developed with the goal of balancing target utilization and school feeder patterns. While the scenario would be effective in bringing most schools into target utilization, it is not a long-term solution and could cause greater stress among community. This plan, as stated, would impact approximately 8,800 students, 32 elementary schools, including the opening of the elementary school number 42, 19 middle schools, and 11 high schools for the 2018-2019 school year. It did not consider the possibility of opening the high school number 13 in the Northeast, nor did redistricting that would be needed to open the high school in the fall of 2022. These would require additional wide-scale adjustments of high school attendance areas and related feeder adjustments. It would run counter to Policy 6010 considerations to avoid redistricting the same students more frequently than 5 years. If the board should choose to adopt option 1, the majority of our schools, I must say publicly, that if the board should choose to adopt option 1, the majority of our schools would be in the target utilization range. The problem would be solved. Close the books. We're done. At the basic level, the problem would be solved short term with much community disruption. Option 2A. The AAC was provided with a feasibility study, Policy 6010, student enrollment projections, and relocatable classroom assignments, and began their discussions in June. The first AAC recommendation was presented on August 22nd and took into account a new high school location in the southeast portion of the county. The first alternative impacts approximately 6,500 students, 31 elementary schools, including the opening of elementary school number 42, 19 middle schools, and 11 high schools. This scenario would require a redistricting process again in 2021 for the 2022-23 school year with High School 13 accelerated opening. And you see the slide that corresponds with that. It summarizes it. Option 2B, the AAC alternative plan. The AAC presented the alternative recommendation on September 27th that incorporates changes related to the accelerated new high school opening and its possible alternative location in the Northeast region. The resulting plan impacts approximately 5,600 students, 32 elementary schools, including the opening of elementary school number 42, 17 middle schools, and 10 high schools. I want to add here as a caveat that many of the redistricting modifications proposed by the AAC have been incorporated into my proposal. So, my proposal accomplishes the four guiding principles that I set out as I evaluated all options from a lens of equity. This recommendation, number one, brings most schools into target within 5 years. And I want to emphasize, board members, that this is a problem that did not emerge overnight. This is over many, many years of cumulative growth. So I can't solve this necessarily in 1 year without a major disruption to our community. Option one does that to fidelity, understand that. But now I'm looking at this at a different level, and the recommendation brings most schools into target within 5 years. It relieves some elementary school overcrowding in near term while greatly limiting disruption of redistricting in any single year. Elementary level redistricting has been greatly reduced, impacting approximately 1,900 students. So the recommendation I'm making this evening, that I told you up front the number of students, the impact would be approximately 1,900 students at the elementary level. Due to the acceleration of high school number 13 opening in 2022, I am recommending no high school redistricting for 2018-2019 and minimal middle school redistricting. This recommendation also offers innovative options to reduce congestion at high schools, which I will describe shortly. And you see a summary of that process. The impact on elementary schools. The primary focus of the redistricting in my proposal has been to relieve elementary overcrowding by filling new elementary school 42, which opens in the fall of 2018. That's right on us. That's basically tomorrow. And we need to move forward to adjust that, because if we don't, we will not have the time necessary to do the planning. Balancing capacity utilization across elementary schools in the Columbia area by shifting into a less utilized schools in the western portion of the county. With this proposal, 26 elementary schools would be within the target utilization next year, and a total of 37 would be below the target area. Over the long term, we will achieve further progress through the opening of new elementary school 43 in 2023 and through the use of initiatives such as regional language immersion centers or other innovative programs such as, and I know that when I introduced this, I said regional immersion programs to get the conversation going. I was somewhat overwhelmed by the response to that in a very positive way, and I don't want to necessarily have the community think that we're just limited on world language, because this needs further discussion with the board. But there are other possibilities. There could be a performing arts. There could be a STEM focus. The possibilities are limitless in terms of the discussion with the board as we think about that. But I want to make people clear that when we first talked about this in the CIP, for the example of moving this forward, I made that conversation focused on regional immersion programs, which is always an option. So again, I wanted to focus regarding that. The map in front of you that you can't see, but on your paper, on the screen, shows the elementary areas before, shows the elementary attendance areas before the impact of redistricting in my proposal, and details the moves that are shown in the report. The next slide, the map shows the impact of the elementary school attendance areas after the redistricting in my proposal. The next, because I want to be very clear and transparent, by the end of this meeting, the recommendation will clearly define all of the schools that will have sending schools in one column, receiving elementary schools in the next column, and because of space, I had to consolidate the polygons affected onto one line. I'd like to break those out individually. And it shows the number of students that will be affected by those moves. For a total, at the bottom, you will see 1,922. The chart identifies the specific elementary schools, polygons affected, projected number of students to be moved from each school. Many of the moves identified in my proposal were included in the AAC plans. 37 of the 50 elementary schools moves coincides with the moves identified in the AAC plans. Next. A significantly smaller number of middle school students will be redistricted with a total of approximately 300 students moved. This will adjust only, and I want the board to understand, what was the method for why we were utilizing this and the analytics of which we used for this was this will adjust feeder patterns to alignment with the changes to be made at the middle school level so that we have that alignment from elementary to middle. So most of these moves, if not all the moves, were defined to make adjustments to feeder patterns from elementary to middle. Over the longer term, we will achieve further progress through the 2022 redistricting to open the new high school and through initiatives such as the planned middle school, high school career development center, which is still on the table with a long-term CIP, further discussion this evening, evidence the need for examining that, and then conversations with the county of when that would play out in the 10-year overall CIP. But I firmly believe that Howard County is ripe, and that's one of our next great moves where we need to put further emphasis on a middle school, high school component of career development. And as we look at the planned additions for Dunlogan and Ellicott Mills middle schools that are included in the capital budget as well, that was taken into account as data points in the development of this recommendation. So if we turn to the next slide again in full transparency, these are the recommended sending schools, receiving schools, and polygons affected by the fact of those moves to make certain that those feeder patterns are strong and focused. And one may wonder, why would there be 0 on one of those? I just want to clarify that. That is a polygon, as we have been accustomed to defining in Howard County, that may not necessarily have children in it currently, but in the future may, and that polygon would move to that particular school. And I just wanted to identify why would that be there as a 0. Again, this chart identifies the specific middle schools and polygons affected, the number of students to be moved for each school. 13 of the 26 middle schools coincide with the moves identified in the AAC plans. A total of 56% of the moves in the elementary and middle school in my proposal coincide with the moves in one or both of the AAC plans. Now, I ask you in this next section, this is where I'm introducing the concept of innovation and different ways to think and talk about redistricting. As I talk about the one-trick pony, there are other ways to do this simultaneously. We will never, ever, in a growing county like ours, eliminate completely redistricting. But there are other ways to address that through programmatic delivery models. So tonight, board members, I propose an innovative solution to relieve our most highly congested high schools, Howard, Longreach, and Centennial, while expanding access to valuable educational programs for many more students. I'm introducing a new program this evening. It's entitled the Jumpstart Initiative. The Jumpstart Initiative represents the expansion of our partnership with Howard Community College to increase dual enrollment opportunities. Dual enrollment allows students to earn college credits while attending high school. Our productive relationship with Howard Community College has been invaluable in crafting this program. I greatly value my positive relationship with the Howard County Community College President, Dr. Kate Hetherington. Since I came on board in May, she has been a true partner. I've met with her several times, and she's been a champion of this effort. Dr. Hetherington has provided a statement tonight to show support for this process and this development, and I do want to read that at this moment. I'm excited to support the Howard County Public School System's Jumpstart Initiative to more than double our capacity for dual enrollment options. They have the capacity to help us. We are proud to provide our students access to advanced learning opportunities and enhance college and career readiness countywide. We look forward to building on the success of our early college program at the ARL, Cybersecurity, Oakland Mills High School STEM to make Howard County even more competitive by preparing our students for successful careers. Dual enrollment can provide students with the ability to get a jump start on their college education, earn industry certification, or learn trades for jobs beyond high school. Through our continued partnership, we can achieve our shared vision to provide equitable opportunities for all Howard County children. And now moving on. We currently have 2 early college programs at ARL in cybersecurity and at Oakland Mills High School in STEM. These programs allow students to graduate high school with 30 credits or 1 year of college under their belt. We are planning to add to the existing early college program at Oakland Mills, and I'm so thrilled to provide the expansion of the program at Oakland Mills to include additional courses for our students who are not interested in majoring in STEM, so they can get a STEM focus, but also students who are interested in adding additional courses not majoring in STEM. And we will create an early college program at River Hill High School. Both Oakland Mills and River Hill are currently well below target utilization. So understand mathematically, as I'm trying to enhance programs, our 3 most overcrowded high schools in these next 5 years, till we get to the 13th high school, and our 2 most underutilized schools just happen to fall in a geographical area that can help us make this work, and they're the lowest in terms of building utilization. So let me continue. As I stated, we are planning to add to the existing early college program at Oakland Mills to include additional courses for students who are not interested in majoring in STEM, and we will create a new early college program at River Hill. Both Oakland Mills and River Hill are currently below target. We will open access to these early college programs to students at Centennial, Howard, and Longreach to assist in relieving overcrowding of those schools. Additionally, students from Oakland Mills High School and River Hill High School will be able to participate as well. We are proud to offer students access to advanced learning opportunities and the ability to earn college credits during high school, which offers a substantial cost benefit to families and supports our community needs. Participation in dual enrollment is associated with positive outcomes on measures like high school graduation, college enrollment rates, college grade point averages, and progress towards college completion. The financial benefit for families is also great. Howard Community College provides a significantly lower tuition rate to participating students, and Howard County Public Schools provides additional support for students receiving free and reduced price meals. Let me continue. The Jumpstart Initiative offers a huge advantage to students and families to earn college credit while still in high school at a greatly reduced cost and time savings. Students who have demonstrated readiness for college coursework and begin in their freshman year may earn up to 60 college credits by the time they graduate. And think about this, can also, while they're earning their high school diploma, simultaneously earn their AA degree from a community college. Rising freshmen and sophomores may earn up to 30 credits, which can earn career certification as well as benefits of internships, and I know a number of board members have discussed that with me as well. Rising freshmen, sophomores, and juniors may also choose to earn a lesser number of college credits through coursework, which still offers a good head start on completing college coursework early and greatly reduced cost. Now, some of the specifics are in the details because of numbers and how we're going to go about doing this. So I'm trying to present this in terms of innovation and break the mold in terms of how we've looked at things in the past. Here are the specifics. As I've stated, there will be no high school redistricting for the 2018-2019 in my recommendation to the board. The next high school redistricting process will commence in early 2021 to allow time to prepare for the opening of the new school, number 13, in the fall of 2022. That's critical what I just said there because that's a timeline. And you might think that's a long time from now. That's 60 months to advocate for a high school, to get a school site, to build a school, to redistricting, and to open it. We are trying to do Herculean work as a result of this advancement. The Jumpstart Initiative in this 5-year period during that time will provide opportunities for students at Centennial, Long Reach, and Howard, as well as students at Oakland Mills and River Hill host schools. To alleviate overcrowding at Howard, Centennial, and Long Reach high schools, we will allow students from those 3 schools to apply to participate in the early college program at Oakland Mills and River Hill. I also want to announce that I am not recommending open enrollment as a process to deal with this. This is not included as a recommendation. I also vetted the data point because there was a recommendation to move the JROTC program from Howard High, and my recommendation does not include that because the data reveals that the majority of those students are already at Howard High and Long Reach. So it does not, there's another one there, I see that, but coming from that one. She caught me off guard there. Enrollment will be limited, and this is another data point. For these programs, to get us started, enrollment will be limited to 350 students. That means that the 3 schools that we're looking at, that we're using the initial number of 350 to populate, to move from Howard, Long Reach, and Centennial to move to River Hill and Oakland Mills. As I said, it will be limited to 350 students within 2 years, beginning primarily with students who will be in grades 9 and 10, and good candidates for the early college program. There will be an application process. Participating students will have the opportunity to complete the 1 to 2 years of college while simultaneously meeting high school graduation requirements. This represents a long-term solution, and we will work towards reaching capacity targets over a few years. As I mentioned, we didn't get here overnight, and it will take some time to build solutions that solve the problems over the long term. At the same time, we are investing our resources in ways that expand our educational offerings for all students and improve equity. We will monitor the results of enrollment levels and continue to add program options and expand access as needed to bring enrollment levels to the target level over time. We also, I might add, have additional capacity to expand these programs if they become that popular at those schools to relieve further overcrowding. The program could also help the aspect in terms of our overall dual enrollment participation to community college, and will also serve as a pilot for adding more innovative programs, including the programs that we talked about in terms of the alternative pathways. At the same time, I'm working with our Chief Academic Officer, Mr. Bill Barnes, and we are reorganizing the aspect of our curriculum instruction to create a department of alternative pathways within the curricular area to provide more focus to this as we build out programs in the future, providing much more attention because of the work that needs to be done. As a community, we need to design more pathways for our students, including options where students may complete high school with associate's degrees, while others may just take 1 or 2 college courses during high school. Regardless, these programs will result in transcripted college credits, and we do have that in terms of how we would weight these. But keep in mind other issues that I want to add. All of this has details and a lot of work. The initiative has a number of implications which need to be worked out, including transportation. Something different is because of this nature of this, the students who would be participating in this program transportation would be included for them during this period of time. And we would begin working on things such as collector sites and hub sites for students to be transported from their neighborhood school to these programmatic schools, and we're working those details out, and I'm going to be talking about that specifically. Additionally, policy changes have to occur in a period of time which addresses the piece of which this program would fall under. As I've stated, transportation will be provided for students at Centennial, Howard, and Long Reach to encourage families to take advantage of these options. We will work out the data, but the model will involve bus stops at local schools, community centers to collect students and transport them to Oakland Mills and River Hill in time for the start of the day. So when students go to those schools, they will benefit from all of the program offerings, athletic participation, that will become their designated school within the Howard County Public School System. As I told you that the open enrollment would not be a consideration based upon a variety of issues, and I talked about the JROTC program as well. I also want to let you know that we're going to be continuing to cost this out, but this model is a cost-effective alternative. I have personal experience in this program delivery model in my work in St. Mary's County and in work of which I did when I was in Montgomery County as well, and both of those programs are working extremely well in both of those counties. Policy 9000, Students' Residency, Eligibility, Enrollment, and Reassignment, is undergoing review this year. The Policy Review Committee will determine if changes need to be made in order for the early college pilot to move forward. I ask that the Board consider implementing the needed policy modifications to allow the application in similar crisis situations where we wish to encourage parents and students to take advantage of these opportunities through voluntary reassignment. And so I'll be proposing some policy changes in the very near future as you continue to address this through the redistricting process. There are many additional nuances to the pilot that are being worked out and will be detailed over the next several months, if not the next several weeks. We will evaluate the pilot initiative during the 2018-19 school year and present additional recommendations for expansion, as well as possible open enrollment could be a consideration, and other ways to provide relief that would also include examining our relocatables. But I want people to understand the short-term relief in this 5 years until we get to the high school 13, we have to provide support to our schools that are overcrowded. And I see a number of our principals here this evening, and I had the opportunity to run this by them throughout the day. I've met with a number of constituencies today, and I can say that we received overwhelming support from the principals who were a part of this process, as they're going to help guide the nuances as we continue to provide more information in your deliberation over the next several months. This is a lot of information, ladies and gentlemen, and I appreciate your patience with me, but I can't gloss over it. The next slide shows the impact in terms of our data. The slide shows the impact of this initiative for the capacity utilization, and we use some just hypotheticals. If 150 students were to participate in the Jump Start program from Howard High, they're at 136% capacity, it would reduce their capacity by 10%. If 100 students participated from Centennial, it would reduce their capacity down 7.3%, and Long Reach would drop 7%. Those are moving in the right direction, but quite not necessarily where we want to be with our current targeted areas. To summarize my proposal overall, it greatly reduces redistricting for the next school year. 1,900 elementary students, 300 middle school students, and no high school redistricting for next year based upon the variables that I've defined this evening. Accelerate by 2 years the opening of the new high school number 13, and I need to say, board members, that is something that needs great attention, to accelerate that high school by 2 years. We're going to be talking about other things that need to be done regarding the selection of school sites, but we're talking 60 months. The tick-tock on this is loud, And there's a lot of obstacles that have to be overcome through the process that normally takes longer than that. So what we're up against and the task of which we're advancing is exciting, but it's an incredible amount of work that needs all hands joining together from the Board of Education, the county executive, the county council, the delegation, and the state. By accelerating by 2 years the opening of the new high school in the Northeast region to fall 2022 and conduct the redistricting process for high school and middle schools in prior years in preparation for this opening, the immediate next step is, one, to determine the location for high school number 13. You understand now why I didn't add that into the equation this evening. This is predicated on the fact that this will have no bearing next year because we're not redistricting for high schools, but now need to understand that the site has to be selected. The current and only options presented right now, the two options under consideration, are Mission Road and Landing Montgomery Road, better known as the Rockburn, and we are in the process of negotiating also outside companies to conduct a site analysis on both of these sites for presentation to the board. So the two sites that we know are Mission Road and Landing Montgomery Road, better known as Rockburn Park. And we're beginning the work to do the analysis for the board to present to you in the very near future. The next thing is, I should say, the use of innovative approaches rather than redistricting to relieve overcrowding by expanding innovative educational programs and opening access to high schools where relief is urgently needed. This should balance utilization while advance our goal to add equitable access to educational programs. It will also be a precursor to additional initiatives, including the new language immersion programs and the Middle High School Career Development Center that we plan to look to open in future years, that drives a very robust agenda of academic achievement to take us to the premier levels of what our county deserves. We are not trying to get to the complete balance in 1 year. Understand that's a liability, and I can hear people chattering about that right now. It does not get us to the complete balance in 1 year. Instead, we are seeking opportunities to provide relief and stabilize growth and attendance across the district over 5 years. Again, it took us many years to get to this level. We will evaluate the impact of the pilot program after year 1 and make needed changes. Over 10 years, we plan to have many more program draws at all levels throughout the county if these are evaluated in a positive way by the Board of Education. The success of my proposal that I'm making tonight hinges on 4 major factors. Necessary modifications to Policy 9000 and its implementation procedures will need to be made during the fall of 2017. 2, our ability to accelerate, and this is probably now the 4th time I'm saying this, our ability to accelerate the timetable to open high school number 13 by 2 years will depend upon receiving funding support from the Maryland Board of Public Works. And board members, I'm also emphasizing that you've already received invitations, our elected officials, our county council, our county executive, our delegation. We will all join together in Annapolis on October 18, where I will be making a case for this support for the funding needed to accelerate that 13th high school. That will occur at a meeting in Annapolis on October 18th, and our primary one-focus topic will be the acceleration of the high school and the funding necessary. God bless you. The Jumpstart Initiative will require funding to cover the additional transportation and other costs, and that will be vetted in another exciting event that's coming upon us, the development of the operating budget. And a final decision to move forward will be needed by December 2017 to allow sufficient time to make transportation, curriculum, and staffing adjustments for the 2018-2019 implementation. As a result, we will gradually bring most schools into target capacity without the disruption of large-scale redistricting. Again, we have heard, we have seen, we have listened. We are currently at a place where nearly half of our schools are outside the target capacity defined in Policy 6010, with enrollment at either below 90% or above 110% of available capacity. With the approval of this plan, my proposal that I'm presenting now, next year we expect to have 26 elementary schools and 15 schools in target utilization levels next year, and aiming to bring 5 more high schools into target with the Jump Start initiative to a total of 50, which is currently at 35. So that's a significant increase as we move into year one. We would expect further initiatives over the next 5 years if the pilot pans out with the data which we expect. Now, for the members of the community who've been so patient this evening, I'm going to reemphasize some very clear points. It's a process. It continues. Please understand that tonight is the interim superintendent's recommendation to the board after taking in the variety of data points of which I've defined this evening. I'm now handing this over to our Board of Education. They have not been able to address this through their public forums. They've not been able to talk about it. And now I'm going to take you through specific dates. The next steps that must be completed for this process to move forward are the Board of Education review of the redistricting proposal and proposals. They have public hearings scheduled. I believe now we've added an additional one in, and those will be work session, exactly. We'll talk about those. Public hearings are confirmed as October 26th and November 7th. Am I correct? Action is scheduled for November 16th. That's when this board, our board, esteemed individuals, will make the final decision and vote that evening. Next, the board approval of site selection for the new high school number 13. I talked about the 2 potential sites. The board will need to decide on the site location by the end of December, board members. The critical nature of that 60-month, if we buy into the acceleration necessary, the county executive moving that forward with the funding commitment, and a minimum of 120 days are required to allow the necessary state and interagency committee, the IAC, approvals in order to receive final state approval of the site. Changes to Policy 9000 need to occur in the fall of 2017. Details of the Jump Start initiative are continuing to be fleshed out over the next several weeks and days, and I think we're continuing our meetings next week. Transportation routes, busing, funding, staffing requirements, curriculum components, site selection again for that new high school, I keep pushing that in, and funding must need to be included in the FY19 operating budget. And the board will finalize its request for that in February of 2018, and the final approval following the county council vote will be in May of 2018. Are you tired yet? Because we have a lot of work to do together. Our planned schedule for implementing the Jump Start initiative includes information sessions for parents and students beginning in October. That's this month. Student applications for programs will be available in December and due in early January. We need to get that nailed down because we have to effectuate the registration process that occurs early on. Students who meet the eligibility guidelines for success in dual enrollment classes will be notified in late January, and high school class registration for the 2018-2019 school year takes place in February. So, up until now, our school system has had a model where all schools have the same program offerings. We are moving now to a model where offerings vary across schools, but with the goal of improving equity and access to greater educational opportunities for all students. It's what I'm defining as our great next move towards a premier school system status. Once again, I want to thank everyone who has participated in this process and accomplished all the hard work that has brought forth this proposal. Again, I thank our esteemed elected officials, our board members, our esteemed elected board members, for their leadership and support in advancing solutions that best serve the needs and priorities of our students and community, which lead to equity and greater educational opportunities throughout the entire district. And again, as I end, yes, I'm about to end. I hear laughter. You want me to continue? Let me remind the community that it's a process, and this is a recommendation. And it is now up to our Board of Education to take all of this into consideration as they make their final decision on November 16th, 2017. This has been a process which has caused much emotional concern within our communities. I have listened, I have seen, I have engaged, and we will continue to listen, to see, and to engage, because when we're talking about our children deserve the very best, and an agenda of equity is being advanced in a very innovative ways to meet the needs of our young people, to address the educational needs of our young people, and to address the capacity needs of a growing county that we all love dearly, Howard County. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your rapt attention and for your engagement in this process. And I encourage you, and I don't necessarily need to encourage you because I know you will, stay involved in the process. Thank you very much.